Hello students, welcome to yet another lecture of your biology session. Today we're going to talk about your cell division and sexual reproduction. The objectives of this lecture are going to be how you're going to know that the cell is divided by meiosis to form your gametes in sexual reproduction, how meiosis will always halve the number of chromosomes in the gametes, and fertilization will restore that number of gametes. Again, we're going to learn about how your sexual reproduction will give rise to your variation. Now, we know that mitosis is a type of cell division in which the number of chromosomes for my cell remains the same. But we also know that there's another kind of division in which the number of chromosomes is halved. This is something that we learned about when we were talking about the types of reproduction. Mitosis is another way for an organism to reproduce asexually, while the other type of division, which is meiosis, only happens in organisms which are preferring your sexual reproduction for division of organisms. Meiosis results into the formation of sex cells, which are also known as your gametes, which only have half a number of chromosomes. If you look at the diagram below, you can see that here there are a lot of chromosomes which are multiplying themselves in the stage of DNA replication. After that, when meiosis happens, there are 4 daughter cells that are forming, and each one of them has half the number of chromosomes present in the parent cell. In animals, the female gamete is known as ova, which is formed or made in your ovaries, while in males, the gamete is known as sperm and is made in testes. In human body, there are 2 sets of chromosomes, one of which we get from the mother and another one of which we get from the father. If you look at the diagram again, you can see chromosome number 1 has 2 chromosomes, one from the mother and one from the father. Again, chromosome number 2 also have 2 chromosomes, one from the mother and another from the father. Continuing the same pattern, you can see 23 pair of chromosomes, each of which will have 1 chromosome from the mother and 1 from the father. When my cells divide by meiosis, that is only process in which gamete formation can take place. The genetic information is copied into all the 4 sets of your cells that are being formed after meiosis. Although a normal cell of my body will always have 2 sets of chromosomes, here we will, in the 4 cells, we will only have 1 set of those chromosomes. Each chromosome will form a pair which is known as chromatid. This is what your meiosis looks like. So the cells are dividing to form gametes, and the cell then divides in twice in quick succession to form 4 gametes, each of which will have single set of chromosomes. What's actually happening here is, look at this. I told you that chromosome number 1 is going to have 2 chromosomes, one from the mother and another from the father. So if I draw that, this is my chromosome pair number 1. When my cell is growing up, there's a process of DNA replication in which my chromosomes will multiply themselves, forming a structure like this. These are 2 chromosomes each. This was 1 chromosome divided into this. All together is still my pair number 1, but when meiosis will happen, these 4 strands of your chromosome will go into separate cells, which means if this is my cell number 1, it will have a structure like this. Cell number 2 will have another structure looking like this, number 3, and last my cell number 4. So this is exactly what is happening. First, my cell will grow and divide multiply my chromosomes, and then they will lead to division of chromosomes. Each chromosome that has formed a gamete will be genetically different from each other. When I say genetically different, I actually mean that there are different possibilities of chromosome going down into a particular gamete. For example, if you see the possibility number 1, you can see that there's this red one and one blue one, another one with red which is longer, blue which is shorter. In the lower possibilities, you see a blue which is bigger one, a red which is smaller, again a blue which is bigger and a red which is smaller. Alongside this, you see possibility number 2, in which you can have all the blues coming together, one large, one small, one large and one small, and you can also have red gametes, which is one large, one small, one large, one small. I told you this in the forms of color so that you can understand, but if you want to go into the genetics, you will know that the red color is from the mother and the blue color is from the father. So gametes are going to contain random mixtures of original chromosomes. This chromosome cell that has been formed, this has chromosomes from their mother and father. For example, you have cells that are from your mother and your father. When you're going to form gametes, those gametes are going to have possibilities of both kinds. So these possibility number 1 and possibility number 2 are going to be in your body. And because there are different possibilities and because there are different combinations of chromosomes that can come down to your one single gamete cell, this introduces me to variation. How there can be different gamete and different sets of chromosomes coming down from your normal cell to a meiotically divided cell. So my testes in males can produce around 400 million sperms by meiosis in every 24 hours. Although out of these 400 million cells, only one of these sperm are going to fertilize the egg, form a zygote, which means we're quite literally 1 in a million. So after 100,000 times, it has to swim, which means my sperm has to swim 1,000 times the length of its own body to reach the egg. So this is my sperm race, in which whichever sperm inserts itself first into the ova will fertilize the egg. So only less than 1 in a million sperm will actually make it to the ova. Production of the sperm is way too much in every hour, right? So 24 hours it is producing approximately 400 million sperms, which means in 2 days, 3 days, it's going to produce a lot of sperms. Out of these sperms, 1 in a million is going to go and fertilize my ova. So which means, and this production of my sperm is continuous from puberty till their death. In males, the sperm production does not stop ever. Now talking about restoration of those chromosome number, because my gametes have a single set of chromosome, which means only one strand of chromosome. We have to restore that to form a child, because the child should be normal, having normal amount of chromosomes in them. So even more variation occurs when fertilization takes place. Why? Because for say, this is a chromosome that came from the mother, and this is the chromosome that came from the father. Now they are going to come together, form a pair of chromosome, which will form my zygote, and division of these both together will lead to formation of the individual. So the two sex cells come together, a new cell is formed with the full set of chromosome. If you look at the diagram, this is a male body, father's body for say it has 46 number of chromosomes. The sperm each will have only 23 chromosomes. Similarly, this is the mother's body. The ova has 46, the mother cell of ovum has 46 cells, which means a normal cell. When it divided, it has 23 chromosomes. These will fuse together, so 23 from the father, 23 from the mother coming together forming 46, which is a zygote. Zygote will later form a baby, which will be a normal individual having normal amount of chromosomes. So this 23 from mother, 23 from father will together form a 46, which will be there in your baby. This is a diagram that you need to remember. The body cells are all diploid, which means they have 46 chromosomes. I'm writing it here. A diploid cell will always be written as 2n, and this 2n has 46 chromosomes. I showed you a karyotype in which you saw that this was my chromosome number 1, chromosome number 2, like this we have 23. So 23 each having 2 chromosome, which is equals to 46. Talking about another word, which is your haploid, which is denoted by single n, and it only has 23 chromosomes, which means chromosome number 1 will not be seen as this. Instead, when you're looking at a chromosome of a haploid cell, this is what they're going to look like. So if you see, the male body is diploid, made up of 2N cells. On the other hand, the testes tissues where your sperms are actually forming is also a diploid, which means a 2N. The sperms in the testes are haploid, which means a single N having 23 chromosomes. Here in the body of the female, the body cells are diploid, 46 chromosomes. Ovary tissues are also diploid, 46 chromosomes. Your eggs in the ovary, which is your ova, is actually haploid, which is N, 23 number of chromosomes, and your zygote or your fetus that has been formed will be diploid, having 2N, which means 46 number of chromosomes. Now, look at this GIF and try and understand, once the zygote has been formed, it will start dividing itself by mitosis, which means 46 chromosomes are going to stay 46, but the number of the cells will increase. So this is how my zygote will divide itself, so that it can become an individual, because a single cell has to form all the body parts, all the organs, everything that is there in a baby's body is supposed to be formed from that single cell. So the fertilization will be done by the process of fusion of both the gametes and then leading to the formation of the zygote. Once that is done, mitosis will start in the individual, so that a new individual, which is your fetus or a baby, can be formed. This is mitosis. Number of cells will be increasing without any increase in the or decrease in the number of chromosomes. Now talking about variation. The major difference that we know of in between your asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction is the kind of cell division that has been involved. In asexual individuals, it is known as mitosis. In your sexual individuals, it is known as meiosis. Mitosis does not lead to any change in the number of chromosomes, while meiosis will divide it by half. In asexual reproduction, the offspring is identical to the parent, carrying the same amount of gene, same amount of chromosomes. So everything is same, which means we're actually forming a clone. And a clone will never have any kind of variation. So no variation will be seen in the individuals that are reproducing through asexual reproduction. On the other hand, if you talk about sexual reproduction, gamete formation is taking place due to meiosis. Meiosis involves certain amount of variations in the genes, like I talked about possibility number 1 and possibility number 2. Once that is done, the introduction of the variation is in this step itself, because possibility number 1 will have different kind of gametes coming up, possibility number 2 will have different kind of gametes coming up. And even when you combine those genes from a mother and a father, that will also lead to different forms of the same alleles from each parent, which means possibility number 1, let me draw possibility number 1, this is your possibility number 1 from your mother, this is your possibility number 2 from father. For say this possibility number 2 has certain genes here and they have certain genes here. These are going to combine now. Both of them are going to be present in my offspring, my new individual that has been formed, which means the individual is not going to be identical to either of the parents. It's going to be a mixture of both, leading to variation. So sexual reproduction will always ensure certain amount of variation, which is exactly why you do not look exactly like your parents. Your mixture of both, you might have features from your father, you might also have features from your mother, but that's never going to be one identical parent. So that completes my reproduction. I hope you've understood everything. Please revise this and meet me in the next lecture. Thank you.